Good evening. This is Leah Patton, the current Vice Chair of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. We'll call the meeting to order. It's 6:01 p.m. We've got a number of items on the agenda. Before addressing those, I'll read a statement. The Zoning Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial board created by the City of Ames. The board's purpose is to decide on applications for special use permits, exceptions and variances to the zoning ordinance, applications for conditional use permits in the floodplain, requests for reasonable accommodation because of a disability, and appeals of decisions of the zoning enforcement officer. As a board of the city, we welcome all testimony. We make our decisions based on the facts and the evidence as allowed under city code and presented in open meeting. Testimony before the board must be given under oath or affirmation. If the proceedings become lengthy, we may ask that testimony be focused on new facts or evidence not already presented. We ask that you come to the microphone if you wish to speak so that your testimony will be audible and may be recorded. Before speaking, please complete an orange information card and hand it to the recording secretary. When you're testifying, please address your remarks to the board. We also ask that the proceedings be orderly. The Zoning Board of Adjustment is an independent volunteer board of citizens. We are not part of the city administration. We are served in our efforts by Vicki Feilmeyer, Assistant City Attorney, Benjamin Campbell, City Planner, and Natalie Reckmeyer, Recording Secretary. The order for proceedings for each application will be as follows. First, an oral statement summarizing the issues and procedural steps will be presented by the staff. Second, testimony and evidence will be presented by the applicant. Third, testimony may be heard from any members of the audience who wish to speak in support of or in opposition to the appeal. Next, the board will give the applicant and the city staff an opportunity to present concluding summaries and arguments. And finally, the board will discuss the issues and evidence and come to a decision. So we've got, like I said before, we've got a number of items on the agenda. The first item on the agenda is election of officers. And so we've got two officers. We've got a vice chair and a chair whose roles are to run the meetings. So I'll entertain any discussion or motion from the board in terms of vice chair or chair.
Are you wanting to step into the chair?
She's the senior ranking member.
I know, not to put you on the spot.
I was going to nominate her. You can do it.
Okay.
But if you don't want to,
If you don't want to.
say no.
And I can do it. If someone else really wants to do it, that I would be okay with that.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if since you've been vice chair and
You have first
are the
dibs.
longest serving member.
Yeah.
I don't have a preference.
Okay, then I guess we nominate you as chair.
All
Yep.
right.
Need a second.
Second.
So we've got a motion and a second, and we'll move to voting.
I think it's just a yay or nay.
Oh,
So all in favor, say yay.
yeah.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then we'll also need to pick a vice chair. Any discussion or motion on vice chair?
I don't know if I'm the second.
I mean, by logic,
Yeah.
and the way she just
We
got
made Leah-
manipulated into
we
it.
made you chair.
Are you opposed?
No.
Okay, then I nominate Caleb.
Second?
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No opposed, the motion carries. Item number 2 on the agenda is approval of minutes of the meeting of March 26, 2025. Any discussion on that or can entertain a motion?
I'll
Read
move.
them,
Oh, sorry.
but I'm going to abstain.
Okay. I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion is made and there's a second. And then we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Third item on the agenda is public hearing for a special use permit for Lutheran Church of Hope at 5119 Lincoln Way to allow for the construction of a new church, Lutheran Church of Hope, and related site improvements within the floating suburban residential low density zone, FSRL district, parcel number 0906400315. So first I'll turn it over to staff to present any comments on the proposal.
Good evening. The property in question tonight is on Lincoln Way. The applicant, Lutheran Church of Hope, is intending to build a new church and related site improvements. The property was recently annexed and recently rezoned to FSRL from Ag, which is the base zoning district. At the time of the rezoning, there was a master plan that allowed for the use of a church with a special use permit and dictated the access points as well. This is a zoning map, and you can see there's residential property to the west and to the north, and then nearby south and east as well. Future land use plan does call for the area to be residential, and I'll get to that other part in a minute. Lutheran Church of Hope currently meets here in City Hall in the auditorium and is intending to build a roughly 27,000 square foot building with 2 floors, a ground floor with the auditorium, and then a basement floor, which will have classrooms and other meeting space. The church does also propose a, let me get to the elevations as the site plan. Church also does propose a, let me get to the elevations. There we go. That's the front of it. A cross that is 70 feet high. And I'll come back to that in a minute. Site improvements include a detention area, a parking lot that is well in excess of the minimum number of required spaces for a religious institution. Landscaping is also proposed along the front and the buffer to the sides. See the landscaping plan there. Durant Street is the stub of a street on the west side there that does end at the property. It was designed with the intention that there would be a future phase of residential development there. So as part of the development, there is a cul-de-sac that will serve as a turnaround for the for Durant, and the primary access point will be taken off of Lincoln Way. A traffic study was conducted, and it was concluded that the majority of the vehicles that would be arriving to and departing from this site will be coming on Lincoln Way. There are Lincoln Way site improvements that are proposed as well. You can see there'll be some changes to the striping there that will facilitate the development. And then a future phase of the development, you can see here outlined on the east side, is intended to have additional parking when there are future building phases. The property does currently contain a man-made pond up at the north side there that is intended to be left as it is. And there will be a dry detention basin, you can see here on the elevation drawing that highlights it, that will be to the west of the pond. And that area will just be grassy. The property also does have, you can see there to the east of the parking lot, it's kind of hard to see on this map, there is an existing house. The previous owner of the property who sold it to the church currently resides in that house. The master plan that was approved with the rezoning addressed the fact that there, under the current zoning regulations, wouldn't allow a separate house on the same lot as a church. But as part of this, as part of the master plan, as part of this special use permit, we're recommending provision that the owner would like to stay in the house until the end of 2026, which the church has agreed to. Then the owner of the house will be building on that north, directly north there, that flag lot, the end of West Bend Drive. And at the end of 2026, after the owner has moved out of the house, then the house is intended to be demolished. The church is not intending to use the house for anything. The applicant is requesting several, the property is currently meadow right now with some trees as well. And the applicant is currently requesting, I'm getting the landscaping plan. The landscaping ordinance does require front yard landscaping, which the applicant is proposing in front of the area that is to be developed, and a landscape buffer along the western part that is close to the development. The way that the landscape code works, it would require landscaping across the entire frontage, even the part that is not going to be developed right now, the eastern part, and also would require a landscape buffer between dissimilar uses. So the church is a dissimilar use from the single-family residential that surrounds it. The applicant is requesting deviations from that, and I'll get into more detail about that here in a minute. We did send notice to property owners within 200 feet, and a few months ago, we also did have a neighborhood meeting. The church sent out invitations and hosted a neighborhood meeting at their current facility on Lincoln Way, farther east into town. And a number of residents came and were able to ask questions. The church gave a presentation of their proposed facility, and lasted about an hour or so. I do want to draw your attention. I'm happy to answer any specific questions about the criteria that are in the code, both for a general special use permit and then for one that is zoned for residential, which is the criteria that we used for evaluating this application. The church does propose to have the cross that I mentioned on top. It's a 70-foot tall cross. It is 7 feet wide for symbolic reasons. They would like to have that lit, and staff does not find that meets with the intent of the zoning ordinance, or would fit with the character. We're not opposed to the height of it. There's a provision in the zoning ordinance, and this is criteria on page 9, criteria 6 VI is the one that I'm referencing. Crosses are allowed, or architectural elements are allowed to be up to 75 feet tall, which this church would comply with. And but they would specifically like it to be lit internally, as some of their other campuses have similar crosses as well. And staff is fine with the height, but recommends that it not be lit internally, as they're proposing. The alternatives on page 11 that staff, for approval of the property, deal with the exceptions that are being requested. And got a handy map here. The area outlined in purple at the top there, the northwest, the north, and then east of the pond there, is the area that is the buffer area that the church is not intending to put the buffer plant material. The code requires for landscape buffering trees and shrubs in there, and the applicant is complying with that for the rest of the western property line. Staff is recommending approval of that exception to the code. That area will be open and grassy as it currently is now. The property directly to the north is currently undeveloped. That was originally part of this larger tract of land that was owned by the resident, who the house that is circled in green is where the current house that will be vacated at the end of 2026 is. And the property to the north there is intended for future development of single family that will complement the rest of the neighborhood that is fronting on Tabor Drive. The area outlined in red would also be required to be have a buffer as well. And then the area in blue is the remainder of the frontage that would require front yard landscaping. And staff is recommending that both the red and the blue be deferred until a future site plan. A future development of the property will require an additional special use permit, so it will come back to you again for consideration. Also in the list of alternatives, where staff recommends alternative 1, which is approval with the conditions and stipulation that the 70-foot tall cross not be lit, that the house be vacated at the end of next year, that we're working with the applicant to record a plat of survey. The property that you see here is actually 2 parcels right now, and they will be combined into 1. The applicant is working on that. That will be addressed here soon, that plat of survey be recorded, that the installation of the improvements along Lincoln Way, and then recordation of some easements for a turnaround at the end of Durant, and then for various utilities that are done in conjunction with the plat of survey. And I can take any questions you have.
Any
Thanks.
questions?
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
What's the parking requirement and how is that calculated?
The parking requirement is 1 space per 4 seats. So the site plan lists 728 as the number of seats, which requires 182 spaces, and they have 386 here. And that's just in the first phase, not
Right.
including future phases.
Any other questions for staff?
Maybe. But I'll wait.
Julie, could you move your microphone?
Yeah. Sorry. I said maybe, but I'll wait.
Okay.
Maybe they'll be answered.
Okay. And the applicant is here, architect is here, engineer is here, and representative of the church is here as well.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Is there a reasoning for staff recommending that the cross not be lit?
The thinking was that it was not in keeping with the residential character of the area.
Okay.
And you said, I forget how you described it, but the lights that they're proposing are on the cross, or is it illuminated by spotlights?
The lighting is basically in the cross.
Right.
Yeah. So not spotlights. Mhm. And the applicant has some images that they'll be showing as well of that to address that specific item.
What would be the maximum illumination that would be allowed?
The applicant intends to keep the illumination under 1800 lumens, which is the standard cut, which is the cutoff basically in our code for certain regulation. It's not so much the brightness that's the issue that staff feels. It is the illumination of something so tall is not in keeping with the character. And for reference, 1800 lumens, if you've got a 3-way light bulb, 1800 lumens is often the top illumination on your three-way bulb.
I got another question. Have there,
Mhm.
so essentially neighboring properties have been notified and there was a public meeting.
Yes.
Has there been anybody who's expressed any concerns about the special use permit?
I have not received any written notification or many phone calls, in fact.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that no one thinks anything, I just haven't been contacted.
You weren't present at the public meeting?
I was, yes.
You were? Okay.
Mhm, yeah.
I'll ask now. Since we know that, since staff is aware that there's future phases in coming forth at some point, does this come back to the board as an amendment or for review in the future?
Yes. Mhm. Yeah, this is not an approval of any future phase. Yeah, the future phases are shown there just as kind of placeholders. It doesn't necessarily have to look exactly like that, but that's where potential future building expansions could be and future parking. And there you can see there are access points off of Durant and off of Lincoln Way. A future access point is proposed there in the southeast corner that comes off of that frontage road that's sort of South Bend Drive. The intersection there on the south side is with Thackeray.
I noticed on the zoning map you showed that
Mhm.
the parcel to the east of the pond is like,
Yes.
well, yeah, it's kind of irregularly shaped with like the big panhandle. Is that a driveway or something?
So the lot had to have frontage. The reason
Oh, I
the
see.
flag there, yeah, it has to have frontage, and it's on Lincoln Way. Access is actually going to be off of West Bend Drive, but for technical reasons, it can't front on West Bend Drive in that way because it would have to have a cul-de-sac essentially. You can't just dead end a street into a lot, and so it has to have frontage off of Lincoln Way. That is its technical frontage.
So just out of curiosity, does that mean the mailbox is on Lincoln Way?
No, it does not.
Okay, sorry.
It doesn't have to be. It is a technical requirement in the code. Yeah. And that flag lot is where the property owner who lives currently in the house that will be demolished is going to be building her new home.
So that's not a driveway at all. It's just frontage.
Nope. The intention is actually to come off of West Bend Drive.
The traffic study,
Mhm.
it said that 90% was projected to come off of Lincoln Way. Is that because that's what best practice is and common sense says, or is that because that's the way they want the traffic to work?
That was the end. That in looking at it, that's where it was anticipated that the traffic would come from. 90% would come up on Lincoln Way.
And then what if, what if other things occur like drive-through nativity, Christmas lights, things like that? Because that is more than just Sunday morning traffic. Does that require any type of approval?
Like a special event, like
Yeah.
Good Friday or
But not good, not a
Ash Wednesday or
service, not a
something, you mean, or-
service, more of a drive-through event that brings people to the site every night for a week or so to drive through for Christmas lights, drive through to look at a living. Some churches do it.
Okay.
I'm just asking.
Okay. Yeah.
So-
I'll be honest. That was not something that I considered. I'm not familiar
I
with the
just
church
know
doing
that-
that. I'm not disagreeing with
No,
you.
yeah, I just know that other churches have done it, and we like personally have done that at other churches.
Mhm.
So I just didn't know if that was taken into account when the traffic study was reviewed for access or anything.
That was not listed as something specific in the traffic study, an event like that.
Is transportation question. Is
Yeah.
Lincoln, is there a raised median at this portion of Lincoln Way?
There is not. Let me go back to the Lincoln Way improvements. There you go.
Okay.
Striping is proposed, but
Okay.
not a raised median.
They're like third turn lane? Or
Yeah, no.
when you
Sorry.
say striping, you're referring to like a turn lane?
Yeah, there'll be a left turn lane there for the traffic coming from the west, and then you can see to the right there's no slip lane is proposed.
Okay. Okay.
So there's no bypass going west. They're turning into the church. There's no bypass for cars to go around them.
Correct. Yeah, there's no turn lane or a slip lane there for the cars that are headed west coming from the east. And our traffic division in our public works department did review this, and they've approved this arrangement.
Any more questions for staff? No?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, next we'll hear from the applicant. If the applicant wishes to speak, does the applicant wish to speak? You can come forward, ma'am. And then just hand your card to the secretary.
The applicant. Oh, you're not with the church.
No.
Okay. No, the
Yep.
church first.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, sir, do you have one of those yellow cards?
No, but I can. I didn't realize I needed to do one. Sorry.
Yep, that helps the secretary.
I do this afterwards.
Yes, just fill that out as soon as you can.
Great.
And then, sir, can you raise your hand? Do you swear to tell the truth?
Yes.
All right. And then could you tell us your name and where you live?
Jason Dietzmach. I live at 203 South Maple Avenue, Ames, Iowa.
All right. And then you can make your statement.
Okay. Do you have the presentation? Oh, you do. Great. Okay. I'm going to speak to the lit cross. So as Benjamin kind of talked through, the fact finding included that the height is fine, that the 1800 lumens was acceptable as well. And it was in regards to the lighting of the cross and the tallness of regardless to the strength of a light that is not keeping within the residential character. So I'm going to speak to the residential character, the surroundings regarding this specific item. Do you want to go to the next one? And the next. Okay. Architectural features. So as an architect, I'll just speak through this. So the Ames development standards, there's maximum height exceptions. That's a 29401 that was referenced. Go to the next one. Architectural features of churches include steeples, spires, and cupolas. These features extend above the building as distinct features, symbolizing both the church's aspiration towards heaven and evoke a sense of strength, power, and importance. They are also intended to distinguish themselves from other building types of their size. Lighting of these architectural features play a big symbolic and aesthetic role, including being a beacon, literally a light into the darkness, echoing religious symbolism and spiritual illumination. Lighting highlights the aesthetic features, creating architectural drama, and provides a nighttime presence that keeps the structure visible and prominent in the skyline, reinforcing the sacred space within the community. Go to the next. So the Lutheran Church of Hope has adopted a cross as their feature. So it's probably more in line of the spire idea, extending above the building plane. There's a couple examples that I'm going to refer to that we're kind of combining. So Ankeny on the left, it is attached to the building. That's going to be similar to what we're doing. Grimes is a lit cross. LED lights came along, and that is what we're proposing to do. And there's going to be some examples of that as we get in the presentation. And the other one is just West Des Moines, but you can see the cross kind of in the sky, in the clouds there. The height they've tried to establish for all their building projects. So, go ahead. So in review of this, we stepped back and we looked at a few different churches in the community to use as a precedence as we're comparing a few things. So go ahead. The first one's Ascension Lutheran Church. And I'm going to do this for all of them a little bit. So that the steeple height was 50 feet. You can see the illumination. It's an uplight, as well as the cupola, which is lit. It's 360 degrees all the way around. So that's lit up to the 50-foot height as well. The context of this building is it has residential small family at the north, south, east, and west. And there's some dimensions here that I'll have, but I have a kind of a summary report at the end, so I won't speak to that unless there's more questions that come up later. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Heartland Baptist Church. So it has a 74-foot steeple. Its illumination height, you can see the lit cupola is 53 feet, and it has 360-degree illumination all the way around. Context of it, there is both commercial and multifamily residential to the north. On the east and west sides are both residential single family, and on the south is multifamily residential. Okay, go to the next. St. Cecilia Church, there's actually an addition going on to raise, and so the existing church has that lit volume, but there's actually going to be a steeple that is approved and is being constructed. So there's some drawings here in the reference of that. So the proposed and coming steeple height is 49 feet. The illumination height of the windows of the cupolas is 40 foot, and that is 360-degree illumination. The context of this one has residential single family all the way around the building on all 4 sides. Next. St. Paul Lutheran Church. So this is a steeple height of approximately 55 feet. The height of illumination is the top. This is kind of a washed, so there's multi-uplighting on the sides. So it's close to 360-degree illumination. The context here is single family on all 4 sides. And next. And then First Baptist Church in Ames. So that this has a higher steeple. It's kind of lost in the skyline due to the photos taken at night, but it extends 90 feet and the height of illumination is around 57 feet. And it had about 240-degree illumination. This one's a little bit different because it has multifamily mostly all the way around it, but included it. So and then the next one. So here, Lutheran Church of Hope, the 70-foot steeple. The height illumination being 70 foot is what we'd like to propose to the top, and 120 degrees illumination. So there's a light, it sits in a channel and it cuts it off. So it doesn't actually even extend all the way to the sides. That's how Grimes was done. And as you can see, there's kind of a blue triangle that shows where that viewable range would be focused on Lincoln Way. The zoning around this has commercial to the east, and there is residential to the north and south. There's actually multifamily kind of off just a little bit at that intersection of Thatchery. So opposite Jack's. Okay, and then you can go ahead to the next. Doing a quick comparison then, this is a chart. So listing those churches in the order we went, there's going across on the columns, there's the height, the illumination height, and then the distances northeast, southwest, and what the zoning was that we were looking at. Go ahead, Benjamin. So I'll just kind of worst case scenario, the residential, the south facing to the residential single family dimension of 360 feet. So that's the closest dimension from that cross to the residence across Lincoln Way. And go to the next one. This is also viewed past Lincoln Way, the rear yards, fences, and landscape screening. And as we start to look at the different churches that would have less than the 360 feet, you can see those highlighted. So there's 2, 3 churches that fall within that range, quite a bit below that range. And that's just the single family. So we kind of excluded the multifamily residential as we were looking at this. Next. Adjusting for the steeple height. So because we have a higher steeple height, I'm just trying to be fair, we're increasing the distance that we would be using as a comparison. So to make that apples to apples, we're adding a multiplier to the existing churches. So the highlighted churches of St. Cecilia and St. Paul Lutheran Church are in that range of the 360 feet once we put that multiplier. And this is measuring to the lit portion of the steeple. So trying to be as apples to apples as we can be. Next. So we feel like this is a pretty good reason to support that there's other churches that are providing lighted steeples or features that would say that there's comparable examples. Just to kind of give a background, a little bit more view of the lit cross, there's a couple of renderings that we put together trying to show the actual size. So the left image right here shows that cross Lincoln Way, the view from Lincoln Way looking north. So it's a south elevation. You can kind of see the cross on the left. There would be there would be parking, lighting, and some that are not reflected in this rendering. But again, you can see that this is, again, on the south view towards the Lincoln Way. And then if you want to go to the next view. Trying to do a similar angles to what would be seen from the houses. We overlaid that same diagonal triangle to Grimes, and that's the Grimes cross right there, for example. So next. So there's two photos that we're referencing that we took at night showing that cross, just for an example. So A1 is centered and straight on. That's the same distance of the residential neighbors to the south, and that would be the view of what they would see from that distance. And then going to the east of that viewing direct from the east view, looking towards the church, the A2 image on the bottom right is that view of what that the furthest resident or the nearest resident from that angle would be seeing. And then if you want to go to the next photo, just in comparison, there's a lit bollard there on the bottom left, so you can see the light, the lumen glow at that. In comparison, the image just to the right of that is the base of the cross. You can see there's a very slender light of that that's showing. So the street, the parking lot lighting, which falls in the same as what we will have here, is brighter than what the cross would be. Next. So this is just a couple of the views. So the view from the west with the cross in the view, and then again the south view. So are there any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
I appreciate the context and the work that you put into this because I found it very helpful. But I do have a question.
Sure.
So the west view and then the your blue diagram, are you, since there's no blue diagram on the west side of on your drawing, are you saying that those it's not visible?
It would not be visible.
Okay, so even though you're showing the west view lit up, if I was living in a house there, I wouldn't see that view.
the crossbar may have a small amount. So the channel that this sits in has 100 block. It blocks the side view.
Okay.
At that portion, with the length of it, there's a chance you might get a little bit of a glow.
Okay.
But as you step further to the side,
Mhm.
you would not get any of view. So
Any other questions for the applicant?
So it's not uplighting.
no.
Okay. It's a little different than.
Yep. Great. Thank you for your time.
All right. And then, sir, if you can hand it to the secretary.
Hi, how are you? There you go.
All right. Can you raise your hand? Do you swear to tell the truth?
I do.
And then can you state your name and your address?
Yes, Chris Canary, 9621 Horton Trail in Urbandale. I'm with Lutheran Church of Hope. Pastor Danny can't be here tonight. He has got Kairos, some college kids hanging out, so he's busy with them at our Lincoln location. But I just want to say thank you for taking the time. It's been a privilege to work with the city staff on this project. We've been in Ames for 9 years. 2016, we started this location, bought the location on Lincoln Way, and have been really excited to continue to get a permitted home for this group. We looked at the drive-through question somebody asked. We did that during COVID. Since then, we haven't, and we did before, but not saying it won't come back again someday, but that's the time we did a drive-through in our parking lot. That's a great question. I just think as we looked at this cross situation, the reason we went in Grimes with the inside cross is we actually found there's less night pollution. We used to light the crosses like we did in West Des Moines from across. And actually, when you throw a bunch of light at it, like you saw the steeples, you have that light pollution. So I was actually in Grimes last night taking those photos. And let's just say the camera even makes those Grimes photos look brighter than they are. It's just a really soft glow. And to answer your question, that LED light strip is like a single strip of light like you put up in your kids' room or behind their TV versus the steel channel comes out about 4 inches or 5 inches. So you're really from the side, you don't see that. So we did that on purpose because we felt it was better in the residential neighborhoods versus lighting that. So we're actually transitioning the other crosses to that because we've had such good luck in Grimes in a residential community, how the city likes that. So just wanted to clarify, we went to this in order to help be kinder with that. So we respect the staff's opinion on that, but just want to say thank you for what you do in serving. And, you know, we look forward to having a permanent home here at Ames. Or another permanent home. We got a permanent home, but not on weekends. So thank you.
All right. And at this time, we would hear from any members of the audience who want to speak in support of or opposition to the appeal. You can come forward, ma'am.
Hi.
And then can you raise your hand?
I
Do you swear to tell the truth?
do.
All right, can you state your name and your address?
My name is Liz Snella. I live at 306 Hartford Way, which means that my driveway is on Durant between Hartford and the boundary. So, yep, that one right in the southwest corner, northwest corner, I guess. And so my driveway actually goes out on Durant. And so I greatly appreciate the concern about the drive-through, because that street is very narrow. And I've gone through this at previous meetings, both at zoning meetings and at the meeting with the church. So I've been involved with this a little bit. So I appreciate your concern for that. Thank you very much. I do worry about the lighting of the cross, because that street is, the Lincoln Way at that area is fairly unlit. And if that is the major lighting feature for that section of the west entrance to AIM, if that's the view we want. I mean, the other thing I'm concerned about is the design creep for the site. Originally, the church was going to be more easterly, and the parking wasn't going to be near the houses. Now the houses, the parking is right up against the houses, or they're properly lined. And they've addressed that with plantings and such. But every time it comes to you guys, there's a change in design. We've never heard about this lighted cross before. And I feel like it's being put in kind of last minute without much input from the community. And so those are my, I guess, 3 concerns with tonight's is, again, thank you for the drive-through concern. I am concerned about design creep, and I am concerned with the crosslit. So I'm opposed to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, are there any other members of the public who want to speak in support of or opposition? All right. All right, ma'am, can you raise your hand? Do you swear to tell the truth?
Yes.
And then can you state your name and say where you live?
Yes, my name is Leila and last name is Ustad Rahim, and I live at 214 Hartford Drive. So, and she is my neighbor. And I have all the concern that she has because we came to all the meetings and my husband was with me all the time. But because we think that it's like nobody's listening to us. So he was disappointed. So he didn't come today. But I told him I will go and I will speak up one more time because I love my neighborhood. It is very quiet and beautiful. And with this church and so many cars that they're going to come to this church, you know, it won't be the same. And there is, in this land is a home to so many beautiful animals. And, you know, it's going to destroy their home. And I'm not going to watch those beautiful deer that they come every evening. So I'm so sad about it. And I don't know what to do. I told everyone about it, but it seems that nobody's listening. So, and we bought this house 2 years ago, and I was so happy about my backyard because it was so beautiful, the nature, the lake, and now it's going to be parking lot. So I'm not happy about it. I just wanted to let you guys know, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other audience members who wish to be heard? All right. Then we'll turn it back to the city staff if for any closing summaries or if the board has any further questions.
I do have one more question. What are the screening requirements for parking headlights and along those lines facing to the west?
Yeah, they, let me get to the landscaping.
I mean, I'm assuming they meet it since that wasn't in the conditions, but just, can you just clarify what that they are?
Correct. You can't really see it very well there. So there are, it's 1 tree per 50 feet along the west side there. And the buffer there is, I mean, it varies just a little bit, but it's 35 feet is what the buffer is, which is greater than what we would have asked for. The church offered that and was willing to have a greater setback. And then you can see there right along the west property line is a continuous line of shrubs. So that will be basically a solid wall of shrubs that will serve as
What will
screening.
the height of those shrubs be?
The height at planting, as I recall, is 4 feet, and they need to grow to a height of 6 feet. And that's what they are proposing to put in 4-foot high shrubs.
And what's the gaps between them? What's the requirement on the gaps between the shrubs?
There isn't a specific requirement for spacing, but they're intended to grow together. I did measure that, and I cannot remember exactly what it is off the top of my head. They are close enough. They're only 5 or 6 feet apart from each other. They're close enough that they will grow together.
All right, any other questions for staff? No? And then we'll give the applicant, if the applicant chooses any closing remarks, or if the board has any further questions for the applicant. No closing remarks? No, okay. And no questions? All right. And I think we're ready to go into closed section at this time. So we'll go into closed session. And at this time, the board can discuss the alternatives.
I would say if we were to look at the approval with the alternative number 1, I kind of would like to strike D, that they could light on the south side. I think I would say excluding D. Maybe that's not the 70 is okay, but not stating not to be lit.
You're fine with that height, but
Yeah.
it says not be lit, but you're saying you're okay if it is lit. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So amending D to permit it to be lit.
Yeah. So just amending D to say to be lit or allowed to be lit instead of not be lit, right? I think. I'm not trying to
No, that's
say
correct.
it for you, but clarify, right?
All right, does the board have any thoughts on that?
I mean, we heard from 2 people from the public who live nearby that it would be a nuisance. I don't know.
I believe their north view of the
Right.
wouldn't even see any light. Only the south view, and a little to the east, and a little bit to the west, see the.
I mean, they drive past it every day. It doesn't look super bright to me. Honestly, the interior lighting looked brighter on the rendering, but also, Ben, do you know if anyone from the neighborhood south of Lincoln Way was invited to that neighborhood?
Everybody within 200 feet. So there were
Okay.
the properties that all back up to Lincoln Way received notification.
I mean, I don't know if you collected people's addresses, but do you know from your attendance if anyone from south of Lincoln Way was there?
At the previous neighborhood meeting,
Yeah.
I don't recall.
Okay.
There were 15 to 20 people who came, but I don't remember specifically if anyone was from south of Lincoln Way.
Yeah. I don't know. If it was uplit, that would make me feel better, but you guys don't need my vote. If you can all agree. But I don't know if that's something that the church is willing to, a compromise they're willing to make, but
Caleb, you may want to speak into the
sorry.
microphone instead of past it.
I said that I find uplighting to be less of an issue because you're not actually looking at the bulb of the light. So, in my mind, that's more in keeping with the residential neighbor or character of the neighborhood. But, I don't know. They're not super big bulbs. It's not super close to any houses. It's only pointing one way. It is very tall, though. That being said, everything else, all the other conditions, I'm fine with. It's just the cross or the light. I don't mind the cross. Sorry.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that the applicant did make a compelling point about the other churches who had steeples or whatnot that are lit that have been obviously approved, and
Yeah.
they're mainly in residential one family to multifamily locations. So if we don't approve that to me is a little problematic
Yeah. Okay.
because it's allowed for other churches.
Yeah. I did appreciate that presentation.
It might not have been special use permits though, right? And the city staff might not have had any opportunity to comment, review, or otherwise, I don't know. And some of them have been there for many years. I appreciated the context because I think in my mind I pictured something more bright, more intrusive than it actually appears to be. I do understand the concern about the way Lincoln Way sits today. And I don't know if there even are streetlights in that section, I guess, but it is kind of dark. Even Jack's in the existing commercial area that's further to the east, they all, with the exception of Come and Go, they all kind of sit back and are a little bit less intrusive as far as lighting goes. So I understand that concern, but
So do we approve, or do we motion alternative 1 as approval and then possibly amend D after, or do we look at amending D?
The motion would
Yeah.
be to, if you wanted to allow for the lighting of the cross, you could move alternative 1 with D amended to allow for the cross to be lit.
But before you make your motion.
Okay.
Yeah. I have another question.
I do too. The one that just came to mind. So since they have to come back for future phases, what happens with these conditions in that instance? Because the buffer in the north, basically along the west property line in the north side of the lot, right now it shows nothing. Even future phases, it shows nothing.
Correct.
What if a parking lot, a future phase comes back and they do want to put parking there?
At the north?
Can we require the screening then? Or, I just don't want to tie us into a condition of approval that might not be fitting with a future development as it expands.
So that north area is their detention pond, and
Okay.
So that whole area will be detention pond. Basically, it's a shallow and sloping. Hang on, I can go back.
So even though it's flatter on top, that's part of their detention area?
Let me get to here. You can see the elevations.
Yeah.
It's all going to be sloped down, so it will be part of they would have to radically redo retention, detention of stormwater on the site in order to put parking there. They have no intention of putting
Right.
parking there. So, I mean, I think they'd be amenable to, if parking ever goes there, that could be looked at again, but they don't have to. They don't have any intention to do that. And to do so would be a huge lift in terms of the way the site has already been engineered.
So that far west part that looks flatter is part of the detention area. It's not just one steep, flat and then one steep.
Correct. Mhm.
Is the parking lot illuminated?
Yes.
Is that all day, all night, or all night?
I don't think they'll probably light it in the day.
All right, Ben. Come on, man.
Unless the sun goes out or something. The lighting along the west side is required to be, so the fixtures themselves, the bulb doesn't project, the light source doesn't project down beneath the lowest plane of the fixture.
Uh-huh.
And that's standard requirement for new lighting. To help reduce light trespass onto neighboring properties. And then on the west side of the property, there are proposed to be a number of fixtures at the west side of the parking. And those will have an extra shield on the west side. So the fixture is here and there'll be a shield that kind of comes down that will help additionally to reduce glare specifically for those fixtures. So it doesn't disturb anything on the neighboring properties to the west.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
That kind of answers.
Okay.
I'm in favor of the proposed change now because I don't think that the cross will be any brighter than the parking lot lights. So
Can entertain a motion?
If I do I have to read the whole thing?
no.
No.
Just say alternative ones.
With the amendment.
I recommend or motion approval of the request, observing the alternatives typed under 1, but amending D to remove not be lit.
And would say, instead say it can't be lit.
They could, or if they choose.
We might be able to just strike D altogether because it says lighting : so it's addressing specifically the lighting. So you might be able to just strike D.
I was going to say
Okay.
you can just strike not.
Yeah.
But does it not limit it elsewhere to 70 feet?
The 70 feet is not the issue. The 70 feet is allowed by code. It was just
It's
the
just-
lighting of it that was the specific requirement.
Okay, exclude D.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, maybe we could have phrased that differently. 70 feet is allowed per code. So they're meeting that.
All right. Any second?
Second.
All right. We've got a motion to approve alternative 1, deleting sub D. That motion's been seconded, and then we'll proceed to a roll call vote.
Patton,
Aye.
Whitehouse.
Aye.
Fuller,
It's Kaler, but I.
sorry.
That's
I
fine.
apologize. Cruz.
Aye.
All right. So the motion has been approved. Any person desiring to appeal this decision to a court of record may do so within 30 days of filing this decision. And that person can do so by filing a petition for writ of cert with the district court. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Any second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned.